afternoon. Always sad when I see this word in the middle, closing, because I know it's the time that we're coming to an end. And what a week it has been. Who knew that the 3 Ps would be the highlight of Sibos? POAPs, prizes, and of course, pandas. Now, we've taken you on a journey this week, and what a journey it's been. We've had some amazing sessions with some fantastic speakers. We've talked about financial inclusion, nomadic finance. We've decoded the economics of a virtual life. We've talked about AI from multiple different angles, from trust to ethics to automation to the underlying technology itself. We've talked about the future of value. We've talked about the potential power of tokenization. We've talked about digital twins. We've had a perfect pitch final. We've had a hackathon final. And it's been an incredible week. Now, we hope that we've inspired and informed, that we've given you insights, knowledge, and wisdom. And we'll be back next year to defy and dazzle expectations. But that brings me to wrap up this little opening for the closing. Our speaker today, Charlie Ang. He is a digital futurist, an innovation strategist. He's worked with thousands of executives across Asia, helping them to achieve exponential growth in a digital era. Now, he's here to take you on a deep dive into Banking 4.0. Your AI assistant will serve you now. So please join me in welcoming to the stage, Charlie Ang.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you, Ineos, for your lovely introduction, as well as giving me the honor to close this presentation at InnoTribe. So my topic is on Banking 4.0 and specifically to concentrate on consumer banking. Obviously, banking has many sectors. We're going to talk about banking for the consumer. So in the InnoTribe, there was many speakers on blue sky topics, on science fiction. So I'm going to land it and close this to zoom in to banking. So I'm going to cover, starting from the world, a high-level perspective, and then eventually I will land on the banking sector. Obviously, today, technology is the game changer. Many of the big tech, the Google, the Amazons, their launches are so important because it affects everybody, every industry. And then what does it mean for business and eventually on the banking sector? So let's start with a quick snapshot of where we are today in the world. This was my presentation in 2019, and my topic from 2018 onwards was the perfect storm in 2020s. Obviously, we are living in it today, but I spoke at this conference just a few months before the turn of the century, turn of the decade, and my warning was this, that we are seeing 4 mega disruptions happening in this decade, and my summary was that first, there will be severe technological disruption risks, never in our lifetime risks. Never have we lived through that, unless you are more than 100 years old. Frequency and severity of black swans. And fast forward a few years down the road, obviously we have seen all these things happening with COVID-19 in 2020. After that, we see ChatGPT, as well as the 2 kinetic conflicts that's ongoing. Why is that so? Because in the first part of the, I would say from 1990 onwards, I think most of us was aware that we collapsed this bipolar international order into a unipolar moment with America as the sole superpower. And that was a very honeymoon period for 30 years. I always tell my audience and my friends and family that 30 years of stability and certainty, in my view, will not return in our lifetimes, not even our children's lifetime. And the reason is because we are turning a new page in the story of humanity. So we are starting a new chapter, and from 2020 onwards, we see these four mega disruptions happening at the same time. None of these should surprise you because you read it every day. The technological disruption, which I will zoom in later on, the climate emergency, and not just a crisis, is here and now. And UN predicted that by 2050, there may be up to 1 billion climate refugees looking for homes. And this geopolitical disorder, whereby from now we are moving into a bipolar world and subsequently into a multipolar world, similar to what we are reverting to after World War II. Before World War II and the First World War is a very multipolar world. And in matured economies, very much in Asia, I come from Singapore, and by 2026, we will have a super age society because the people living in born in 1946 to 1964 are all retiring at the same time. So we are facing this challenge of a shrinking workforce. So we are moving from a VUCA to a hyper VUCA period. And every one of them is huge and deserve its own conferences. I'm sure you attended some of them. But today we are really talking about this confluence and collision of all these forces at the same time. From slowly, and when this decade started, it went suddenly. So the tectonic plates are shifting, creating unprecedented levels of chaos and uncertainty. So just take, for instance, the aging demographics in Asia and in matured economies around the world. In China, in Singapore, in many of even Korea, how do we combat that declining workforce, shrinking workforce? In Singapore, it started to shrink in China as well, and that's why we are actively pursuing and trying to be ahead in this fourth industrial revolution game. And that will, in effect, also impact the geopolitical dynamics because countries that pursue that and win that competition will then have a geopolitical advantage. Just look at the Ukraine conflict and how it has exacerbated the climate crisis because the clean energy, there's the gas supply from Europe, from Russia is cut off from Europe, and then you have to consume more fossil fuels. So it's creating the second order and third order impact. And that's why we now have a situation of a business fog of war that the visibility is reduced from years to months and even weeks. So I believe that we are entering a period of the greatest value and wealth creation period in history, primarily because of technology. But at the same time, for companies who are not able to manage this transition in this decade as we speak, they will become the casualty in this corporate mass extinction event. So I've been using the term for a long time, strategic inflection. That is the change in the external environment that if you're not able to cope, it will be the beginning of an end. But if you are able to capitalize on the opportunities, is a chance to rise to new heights. So let's look at the technology landscape. I'm sure you have heard, even sick of the term fourth industrial revolution. The term was coined by World Economic Forum in 2016, but I've been advocating and predicting the new paradigm that's coming up, the 4.0 model, in 2013. So I'm not merely trying to jump on the bandwagon, but I've been a firm follower and a believer in this new 4.0 fourth industrial revolution. So if you are to look at the four different revolutions, in fact, you are actually looking at two main models. The left-hand side, was much further back in history. That's the industrial model. And the first stage happened in Great Britain with using the steam engine and the subsequent foundational technologies. And later on, what happened in America was the ability to harness fossil fuels and other sources of energy to transform it to industries, to transform it into electricity, and subsequently the rise of large-scale industries such as transport, construction, infrastructure, and so on. So what I'm trying to say here is that the first stage, and if you look at historical records, the first stage, the world was not really booming at the time in terms of GDP, in terms of population growth, in terms of all other measures. It was kind of flat. And it has been flat for the last 1,000 years. But it was kind of flat. It was the second stage that changed the game, that totally unleashed, using electricity and distribution of energy to factories, to homes, and so on, that the world really took off. So if we are to zoom back roughly 70, 80 years, we start the new curve again. The advent of microprocessors, integrated circuits, and then the rest is history, PC, and then the internet. But I'll argue that that is the same foundational start, just like in the industrial period. The first stage, it was really foundational. It puts information in our hands. But the bottleneck in terms of big boom was really about our cognitive overload, our cognitive capacity to process that information. So we have an information explosion. And what we are seeing now is really the intelligent explosion, so that we can fully harness the information and the data and really drive new forms of growth and going vertical in terms of this impact on our lives. So that's the age of AI. So what I'm really saying that we have not seen this before in recent times, because the acceleration and the vertical takeoff is here and now. So when the new technology comes into play, now is what we call technology 4.0, that will lead to economic change, economy 4.0, and then that will lead to even political change, politics 4.0, and eventually societal change, society 4.0. So if you go back in time, that's what you actually observe. After the industrial revolutions, what you have is industrial scale wars happening in the First and the Second World Wars. And then subsequent to that, we are able to upgrade our political systems into the current modern political setup that we have. So we will see 4.0 versions of business, of our society. Even the concept of family would change. For example, people may marry their AI assistants, maybe marry a few of them, and get the surrogate parents or mothers to give birth to the children and get it shipped to them. So we are seeing all these possibilities, and all aspects of life are being invented as we speak. So 4.0 of every industry, and banking will also see its 4.0 iteration. I believe in this so much that I've been branding what I do as Everything 4.0. So now let's take further zoom down and zoom in to the next 10 years. So what I call UI 1.0 to UI 4.0. So what is a UI? I call it the dominant user interface, which is our preferred window to the world. And each generation is a quantum leap from the past and hijacks attention from the previous generation. So when our window to the world shifts, attention shifts, our customers shift, they migrate value creation shifts. And that's where the impact and the disruption to industries and business model happens. So the 1.0 has been around for a few hundred years since the Gutenberg moment, printing press, and subsequently you can add radio and as well as television to the mix. So the next UI actually started 30 years ago, not too long ago, Netscape moment, 1995. And with that, we have the browser first period and the birth of the first generation internet companies. So if you remember the mantra in those days, IBM aggressively marketed where every business is a e-business. So that was the browser first era. But that didn't really disrupt many industries yet. What disrupted many companies, well-known names, bookstores, Blockbusters, and many other companies, was the iPhone moment. And it was the first serious digital disruption. And these companies were born, the Facebooks, YouTubes, and WhatsApp of the world. And Apple popularized that. I'm sure you remember this famous slogan, there's an app for that. There's an app for everything, in fact. But this UI 3.0 is reaching its breaking point for a few reasons. First is that there is a bloat of features. How many functionality and features can you add on your mobile phone before it gets too complex, before you have content overload, as well as the interface complexity? And more importantly, the app interface that we pre-design and we pre-program and put it into your hands, the various steps and user journey that you have to go through is limited. But don't forget, AI functionality is unlimited. What are the kinds of questions you ask the ChatGPT today? It's almost literally unlimited. And in the future, what you ask the AI assistants to do could also be unlimited as well. So how do you accommodate unlimited AI functionality into this very pre-designed and standard limited app interface? So that's why I believe that we need something more and something better. So that's where we are now in the third iteration of a new user interface in as many decades. So we will go from touch, that's the mobile, to the prompt user experience. So we will enter very soon, if not already, the AI first user interface. So that was the ChatGPT moment. And the birth of a new breed of AI startups. I've not come across a memorable slogan yet, but if I'm to be a consultant to an AI assistant company, I'll call it, "Your wish is my command." I was inspired by the Warcraft 3, and when you click on the peasant unit, for those who played that game many years ago, it will say, "Your wish is my command." And I love to keep clicking it just to hear this, just like me being a master. So this shift to the AI first UI is imminent, but it won't happen overnight. I remember in those days when we shift from the feature phone, the Nokias and the Blackberries, to the iPhone and to the Android. And if you are to enter a train, there's almost no one looking at the phone. But 10 years later, when you enter the train, everyone is looking at the phone or listening to some podcasts or music. So this is, we are in this transitional period, and you can see that almost every app will start to wrapped around generative AI features and conversational experiences. I know when I was coming here to visit various places, I will use some of the, for example, TripAdvisor, and it will kind of generate a summary and even plan the interface, some of the points of visit for me. So in this year, next year, I predict that major apps will start to wrap around generative experiences, which will just be a bit of novelty. It's not game-changing. We are not using it on a daily basis. But 3 years, 4 years from now, we'll have an equal balance of users who would use the AI interface and who will still continue to use the standard UI. But moving forward after that, I believe that we will default for most of the tasks that we want to perform through the AI interface. And for some power users or people who are just not comfortable using AI interfaces, they may still stick to the old standard interfaces. So as AI advances and user behavior habituates, 4.0 will eventually supplant UI 3.0. Just like most of the time now, you use your phone to access the internet and services rather than using your laptop and PCs. So what does it mean for business? And I've been helping companies understand this for a long time. What is the killer app and the biggest prize money in the AI era? And that's what I'll attempt to answer this. And my answer, today's title has the big reveal that it is the AI assistant, so it should not come as a surprise to you. So most first-generation technologies and products, because they are trying to get ahead of competition, they are actually performing pretty badly. Very poor user experience and limited functionality. So the first-generation tablets by Apple and Newton, and subsequently, we have the iPads and the Android tablets. It's so sticky now for most of us. First generation mobile internet, to fit the internet in these small, oftentimes monocolor screens, it doesn't work well at all. And the first generation media streaming, it was terrible because the bandwidth was limited. We could not transmit high quality, high fidelity, and highly reliable content. But I personally use many hours of YouTube every day, and some of you prefer Spotify, some of you would also indulge into Netflix. Similarly, the first generation AI assistant is very frustrating. I'm sure many of you will agree with me. And after a few tries, you stop using and have not gone back after many, many years, whether it's the Siri AI assistant by Google or Alexa. But the next generation, anyway, this is just a concept by a marketing agency of Samsung, in terms of coming out with the concept of an AI assistant, will truly be intelligent, integrated into many information sources, integrated into many service providers and product owners, and ubiquitous across different devices. So they are just like air all around us, everywhere we go, but they're invisible, if you want it to be. And audio, visual, text. So in the middle is us, right? We are the people. And there's a few levels or wrappers that is where the AI system will play. First is our 360 context and needs. Today, because we don't use it enough, because it's not usable enough, the AI system don't understand us. Unless you're talking about, let's say, a Tencent or Alibaba with the super app, right? then that's where they will have a lot of the data to try to understand who we are and what we need. And when you have the context, then you are able to take what's out there in the larger world and customize it for us. If you understand why we cannot outsource a lot of things, it's because we understand our context the best. If we are to tell somebody, that person may not exactly understand our context and needs. And if you have a personal human secretary or assistant, then you know that the more your assistant knows you, then the more they are able to take what's out there and customize and suit your taste and your budget and preferences. So that is in the next few years, the AI assistant will start to know various aspects of you, if you want to, right? Because if you are privacy concerned, then you will not be able to benefit from many of the advantages that it will provide. And provide you with personalized information and context. I mean, I've been talking about this for some time, and in the past, it's quite hard to understand pre-ChatGPT, right? This is like so far away. But today, with ChatGPT, we are using it actively every day, and this is very easy to understand. And recommend you the right products. And many of the products, especially information, financial products, for example, in the past, we had to have standard products. This criteria, you pay this rate, this is a tenure. In the future, there's no need for such categorization anymore or productization anymore, because the AI assistant will, based on your profile, your risk, and right price the product exactly to suit what you need, just for you. So there will be major benefit in terms of time minimization, cost savings, better value, because I mean, just coming on this trip, I spent many hours, reading through reviews, looking for sites to visit, and things like that, right? It's very time-consuming. Obviously, ChatGPT is helping out with that nowadays. Better value. In fact, your personal assistant can negotiate prices for you and minimize your cognitive load, so we can have a focus on higher order things like our work, our family, and improve our quality of life. And I believe that in order to win this game, the AI assistant and the provider of that, which is one of the big techs, they will always do the right thing to earn your trust. Because the moment they lost your trust, just to earn that little bit more from you, you may migrate to a competitor. And as you know, there is this flywheel in terms of knowing the customer better, offering better services, better experiences, and that will lead the customers to come back more and more, right? So if you are to jump on one player's flywheel, it becomes a very powerful barrier to entry and the cost of your exit to another platform, because the other AI assistant will have to learn about you from scratch again. So there's a big cost of migration. So importantly is to create that trust with you, not the trust with the service providers or the product providers, and intermediate you with what you need. And of course, that's why I say this is the biggest prize, because as you know, for example, for search, it's eroding the user base from search to AI prompts, questions. And to me, if Google win this game, it could be 5 times, 10 times more than from search revenues. So AI assistant, they can play 3 different roles for you. They can handle the mundane and the productivity tasks. That's obvious. They can help you make better decisions as your decision advisor, offering strategic options and recommending actions, as well as things to buy or things to do, as well as the important part, that is getting the transaction done. Not just giving you the information, but making you transact, and even a banking transaction, a financial transaction. And this will, for AI assistant, the big players integrating all these three roles. And as I said before, a 360-degree context of view that can help you in these various verticals, from financial services to your daily shopping and commerce, entertainment and media, news and journalism content, your travel, and so on. So in a way, I see them becoming all-powerful and becoming the super app, just like the Tencent and Alibaba in China. So this Post app, AI-first business tech ecosystem, just like 10, 12, 13 years ago, the App Store, Google's Play Store, that was a new ecosystem being formed. So we are at it again. The AI assistant will have thorough understanding of the user, again, as much as you allow it. And the more you allow it, the better information and actions you will recommend. This is the hard part, right? Thorough understanding of the world, thorough understanding of human language. Obviously, today we know that has been fixed already, and eventually thorough integration with third-party products and services across all the other verticals. So when we have UI 4.0, we are also seeing the formation of a tech stack 4.0 and ecosystem 4.0. So you'll see information flow all the way to the service provider, but the AI assistant will be recommending many products, the right products for you, and eventually when you decide A, B, or C, then it will activate the ecosystem and transact and come back to you. So this is good enough today, the phase 1, because thankfully of all these language foundation models, you can see what the big techs are doing. They are actively trying to integrate their pretty dumb AI assistant of yesteryears with the large language model. You can see in recent last few launches. And big tech will build the ecosystem pretty soon. And eventually, when this takes place, then they will monetize toll fees for all transactions. Maybe just 1% will be good enough. But when you add up all the consumer volume, that will be a huge figure. So there is an impending war that is playing out. First is the big techs, just like just now I showed you the large-scale cross-sector ecosystem, as well as the vertical providers. The banks will have their own, content providers will have their own, everybody will have their own, because they are trying to build a wrapper around their own app today. But if you have to compare the two, which one do I think will be superior? I believe the big tech's version will be superior because of that 360 context understanding. Imagine if you have to use a hotel, like a hotel chain, a few times a year, how much does he know about you? Maybe at most your traveling habits. Does it know your family? Does it know your budget? Does it know your lifestyle and other areas? Your AI system will know that from the big tech, but not your vertical providers. And besides that, your big tech providers also have that multiple products, right? So it's not single sourcing, whereas you are single sourcing. So just imagine the Uber, right? In many countries, there's different versions of Uber and a few other competitors. So the AI assistant from the big tech will be able to, depending on real-time conditions, real-time pricing, and understanding your urgency, your diary, what you want to do for the day, and recommend you the right one. Whereas the Ubers of the world can only recommend what Uber has. So I believe that it will be a tough battle, but I see that the top one will emerge victorious most of the time. So what does that impact banking? So the famous banking futurist Brett King, he said that it's all about the experience for banking 4.0, and banks better start to eliminate friction. And the definition of banking 4.0 is embedded, invisible, and experiential. So this is the big idea diagram and the progression over time, the reduction and eventually the elimination of friction. And obviously, we live through that from the physical to the internet banking, mobile banking, and eventually AI-first banking. So I'm going to give you my own twist to that. That banks, and as I said before, every vertical application will have their own Gen AI wrapper. So that will, just like what Brett King predicted, will provide the lowest friction and most inclusive, because the most natural language is the human language. Whether you are young, old, adult, or kid, do you know the native language or not? It doesn't matter. You will be able to use the app. I struggle to use some of the Chinese apps, obviously because I'm not so strong in my Chinese language skills. But you can use whatever language you want in the future, right? Your AI assistant can speak any language. Tailored financial advice, hyper-targeted promotions, not those that out of 100 you may find 2 or 3 interesting, or maybe 10 interesting. This is spot-on promotions and offers. And also personalized offerings and what I call liquid products. Just now I illustrate to you that, does financial products have to be packaged into ABC, with this criteria and these rates, this pricing. Another is DEF product and whatever, right? Because in future, the barriers and the packaging of products may become more and more irrelevant because it's anyway bespoke based on the risk profile of the consumer. And fully self-service, because that interface is all integrated to the customer records and so on, then you have it solved on the spot. So this will be the new competitive advantage for banks, not your physical store or physical branch experience, and less of your standard app, but more of the personalized advantage that you give to the customer. So, you always hear this, the future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed. Well, I'm going to give you some examples. So, Bank of America in 2018, that's amazingly 6 years ago, started to offer their AI virtual assistant called Erica. And fast forward, you can always watch their video online, surpassed 2 billion transactions, interactions, helping 42 million users. And today is 2 million transactions per day. And with generative AI, more and more banks are delving into that. Wells Fargo had their own Ask Fargo. And remember just now I mentioned that your AI assistant can do unlimited functions, right, within your guardrails. How are you going to put this interface into standard menu interfaces, right? Show me my Amazon purchases. It could be any company to do with that. How much did I spend on pets? What did I spend on groceries? Whatever you want to ask, it should be able to answer in time to come. So that is my first point on banking 4.0. The second point is that, as I explained to you earlier, big techs will integrate with big banks. Just like any providers, they will want to get into the act. As they say, if you are not on the table, you're on the menu. And if you're not plugged into their ecosystem, your customers may be, or someone, they may recommend the customers to somewhere else, another bank or financial institution. Thankfully, today we have the banking as a platform, and that allows banks to share the customer data with third-party providers. And I believe that in time to come, if not already, the three big tech players will start to connect through the open banking as a platform APIs to serve the consumers. So I can see and predict and anticipate this competitive and collaborative dynamic between big tech and big banks. After all, you are sharing your customer data with another company. They may use it for their own motivation, right? It's out of your control. So do you really want to do that? But if you don't do that, you may lose out on future customers, because the Alexas of the world will be recommending not just based on one provider, maybe 100 products from 100 banks, and pick the right one for the customers. If you're not in it, then you kind of just like Google search today, right? In the first page, you're not there, you lose the business. Another example, the future is already here. I come from Singapore, so I'm very familiar with DBS Bank, rated best bank in the world for a few years running. And a couple of years back, they have started to embed and make banking invisible with the largest API in the world. So they are embedded into different service providers, different e-commerce players. So they are the bank powering those organizations. And I foresee that with the takeoff of AI assistant, they will be one of the first to win in this new emerging landscape. So it's not surprising that their slogan is live more, bank less. Because I don't think anyone wakes up in the morning and do banking, right? From innovation terminology, we use the concept of jobs to be done. Banking is not really a job to be done. It's more like part of the process of getting something done. For example, you want to buy something, you want to pay somebody some money for some reason, you want to buy a new car or a new home, and banking should be as invisible as possible. My third and final takeaway point is hyper-automation. This is not just for the case of banking. I think this is obviously quite commonsensical that there is a shift in terms of manpower intensity, in terms of how many people do you need to get things done. So we are moving from the world of what I call tech-augmented workforce. Technology is there, but humans are doing the work. Most of the heavy lifting, and technologies are augmenting us to make us more productive. So that's what I call talent 3.0. You have managers, you have experts, you have operators. But that part of it is collapsing, because that work, more and more moving forward, will be done by technology. And what you need is a new type of talent, what I call entrepreneurial leaders. In this midst of change, are you an executive leader, or are you an entrepreneurial leader who's able to reinvent the business? Experts with AI become super experts, and you need plenty of corporate innovators and builders to develop these new technologies and systems. So I call this a human-augmented tech force. So obviously, banking is one of the most advanced industries. But for many of the industries, they are more on the left-hand side than on the right-hand side. But anyway, the world is going through this massive and messy shift from the left to the right, from a workforce to tech force. Another case in point, I'm saying this not because Tencent or Alibaba is a booth here, and they have been very much a digital-first financial institution, using this 3-1-0 principle: 3 minutes for your application process, 1 second for approval with 0 staff intervention in the process. If you want to deep dive into a lot of what I share with you, I recommend you this book. It's the best book that kind of echoes what I've been talking about, The Age of Invisible Machines. And the author said that in chapter 1, Ant Group has upended the global banking industry and already implemented conversational AI to give them a head start and surpassed the number of customers served by today's largest US bank by more than 10 times. There are few differences that set Ant apart, and the common theme is hyper-automation. Not your automation of the past, but extreme automation. And their success, according to Harvard Business Review, is that there are no workers in the critical path of operating activities. AI wants to show there's no manager approving loans, no employee providing financial advice, and no representative authorizing consumer medical expenses. I'm sure many of your processes are like that already. So with that, actually I'm just right on time. My 3 points are here for your takeaways, and I'd love to connect with all of you after this, and thank you for your attention.